Alright, hello, what's up guys, it's Curtis the Cactus here, and today we are doing a tier list of every video game that I have played on Steam. That's why it's kind of small, as I've only been into PC gaming for like 2 years now, so the list is not great, but I'm going to tier list them regardless, starting with Rise of the Tomb Raider. I think for the Tomb Raider series, better than, I think it literally goes in order, so like Tomb Raider would be the worst of the three, and then the Rise would be second, and then Shadow would be the best, as they just kept improving with each iteration. So we're going to put Rise of the Tomb Raider in the B tier. Next we have Samdora. It is it's like an illustrative walking simulator where it's like you just basically hold W and the story progresses. I'm not the hugest fan of those games, but I still give it a try. Has pretty artwork, but we're gonna put it in the D tier. We have Shadow of the Tomb Raider. I'm gonna put that in the A tier, as it was a really fun game, but overall the gameplay of those games, it doesn't really suit me 100%. Like, that's why it's not S tier, but it's still a really fun game. Next, we have Shadow Warrior 2. I'm going to put that in C tier, as I just like sort of speedrun the game, as I didn't find it super fun. As if I wanted to play a game like that, Doom is more for me, so that is going to live in the C tier, along with Shady Part of Me. This game is really fun with the puzzle it has. It's a puzzle platformer. It's a 2D puzzle platformer with all the puzzles being based around light. That was a really cool concept, but it got kind of repetitive near the end of the game, so I'm going to put it in the C tier. Next, we have Shovel Knight, and I'm going to slap that in the A tier, as it was one of my favorite 2D games that I played that's in the past couple of years that has been retro based. It is actually a really fun game. If you haven't played it, I recommend you do give it a chance. Next, on to Sonic Generations. I'll put that in the B tier, as it's one of the only Sonic games that I've played and actually was like, wow, that was good. Because most Sonic games, I love Sonic, but God, they're so bad. So I'm glad that this is one of the better ones. I still haven't played Sonic Mania, but when I do, I'm sure it'll be better than that. So I'm going to slap it in the B tier for now. Oh, Hollow Knight, that's an instant S tier. Just had to saw that, so I had to slap it up there. Hollow Knight's probably my favorite game of all time. It's one of the best Metroidvanias I've ever played, and it's just overall a great game. Soul Calibur, I'm gonna slap this in the C tier, as I only played it for the story mode. I know, right? Like, why would you play a fighting game if you're just playing for the story mode? But I just had an itch to play it, and I didn't really care for the online. Overall, it was quite easy, so I'm going to slap it in the C tier. This game's called Spinch. I'm putting it in the D tier. It's really poorly made. It has a lot of bugs, and I didn't like it. It was a 2D platformer where there's like they're trying to make Mario, but it was really bad. I'm going to be honest. I just wasn't the hugest fan of it. All right, next, Battle of Bikini Bottom. I'm going to slap this in the B tier. It is a very honest remake. Like, it's not a great game or anything, but for the game that it was remaking, it did it perfectly. It did it all the justice it needed to. I got every achievement. Like, I really enjoyed the game, so I'm gonna slap it in B tier. Now, talking about good remakes, I'm putting the Spyro trilogy in the A tier, and I'm not gonna sort them by like which order they come in, so I'm just gonna sort of slap them in there. The Spyro trilogy is such a honest recreation of the trilogy, and I played them all as kids, so it was just like a huge nostalgia trip for me. So I feel like that's why I liked it so much. But overall, it just felt good and played good, so I'm going to leave it in the A tier. Oh, I see Elden Ring down here. I'm going to slap this in the S tier, as it is also one of my favorite games and one of the ones where I've pushed to get 100% in the game. It was also really fun. Like, I just had a lot of fun playing Elden Ring. Got really deep into it, got involved in it, and like right now I'm replaying it on my YouTube channel as a randomizer. So if you haven't seen that, go check it out, as it is very fun. Like, it's a very replayable game, and there's so much you can do in it. So I really do love it. So S tier it goes. All right, next, Suicide of Rachel Foster. I'll put that in the B tier. It's a really slow, atmospherical game where you're basically solving the mystery of what happened in this manor/abandoned hotel. You got to find out how everything went down. It's a walking simulator, like, for what it is. Like, it has a really good story, so I'm gonna put it in the B tier. But I'm not the hugest fan of those styles of games, but I really wanted to give every game a try. I did play it, and I did like it, so I'm going to put it in the B tier. I'm going to slap Tunic up in the A tier. It is one of my favorite games that I've played in the past year. Like, if you take Zelda and put it in, like, a Souls-like. So that was a lot of fun for me. I never really played a lot of Zelda Link growing up, so I had a lot of fun with this, and it made me very interested into the series. So maybe whenever Nintendo comes out with their next console, I might have to indulge, but I refuse to get a Switch. Superland. I'm also going to slap this in the B tier. It was a really fun Metroidvania puzzle game where you just got different abilities to solve more puzzles. It was a lot of fun. I got stuck at times, I'm not going to lie. Now on to Ghost Recon Wildlands. Honestly, it got really repetitive for me, the core gameplay loop, so I'm going to put it in the C tier. I know it was better than these, but I think it's like on par with these. Shadow of the Tomb Raider, the first one, I'm also going to put in C tier, as it's not better than the other two. Turnip Boy Commits Tax Fraud. It was a really fun game, but I don't think it was like anything crazy. It's just like it was fun because I was screen sharing to my friends and we were messing around. So I'll put it in B tier just from the pure enjoyment. Unbound. I'm also gonna put it in B tier. It is a 2D platform. If you don't know, if you like Celeste, I would suggest playing this. It's not quite the same, but it has a lot of really interesting platforming and different game mechanics that I find really fun. What Remains of Edith Finch? I think it's on par with The Suicide of Rachel Foster, as in they're both like the same game mechanically. Like it's a walking simulator. You have to solve the mystery to see what happened there. But I do like Edith Finch. Like I think they're on like the same page in terms of which one I liked and enjoyed the most, because they were good experiences for what they were, but they're as like games as a whole, I'm not the biggest fan of them. Wolfenstein 2, also another B tier, because it's not better than the first. As they have the first right here, I will put this in A tier, as it was a really good game. The first one really sucked me into the Wolfenstein series, so then I played the other two, and this one was just not as good as the original. Old Blood drew it back, but I don't know if it was. I think I'm also gonna put it in A tier. I feel like they're both better than Wolfenstein 2. I might move Tunic up to S tier. I feel like of enjoyment, I feel like it was closer to these two than the rest of these games. All right, Little Nightmares 2. That's an A tier game. It's a very short experience, but it was a really fun experience. Monster Hunter World. Now this is one of my favorite games as well, so I'm gonna put it in the S tier as it's a third person Monster Hunter game, and it was based on like a lot of these monsters are like dragons or dinosaurs, and I really love the gameplay loop. Like I can always have fun hopping with some friends or even alone, just hunting down these monsters, grinding out parts. It's a really grindy game, and I really did enjoy it. So I'm gonna put it in the S tier along with Tunic, Elden Ring, and Hollow Knight. The Messenger. Also gonna put in the S tier. It's a 2D indie game. If you haven't played it, I really do recommend it. It's like does cool things with the time shifts, because it'll go back in time and from the past to the future, and with that comes like I think it goes from 16 to 32-bit pixels, and the art style changes. But it's one of the better games I've played that is a 2D game. All right, the original Resident Evil. I'm also gonna slap an S tier, mostly because of nostalgia, but it is one of the best Resident Evil games of all time. And I'm also going to slap Resident Evil 4 in the S tier because it is the best Resident Evil game of all time, in my opinion. 7 didn't quite make it there. Actually, I'm going to put it in B tier because it was just sort of all right. Like, when I played it at the time, it was really good. But going back, I played it again this year, and it just wasn't great. Compared to Village, which I'm going to put in A tier, because I don't think Village is on the same tier as 1, like the first experience you get playing Resident Evil, and then 4, the peak of the franchise, in my opinion. It is a really good game, so I'm going to slap it in the A tier. Next is Spiritfarer. I'm also going to slap this in the S tier, as I've replayed this game like 3 times now. It's very mundane. You just do like farming, different tasks around the ship. It's very chill. I know it's not a game for everyone, but such a very calm, relaxing game that I could just play for hours. I could play for like 10 hours at a time, so I'm going to put it in the S tier. It really got me hooked. Apex Legends. I'm going to put it in B tier. I'm not the biggest fan of Battle Royales because I played the crap out of them, but it's a good one. It's not my favorite, but it's not the worst. So it's just sort of middle, B tier for me. Archvale. I'm going to pop this boy into S tier. It's a game I didn't really know existed, but you really do have to play it. Man, it is a 2D, or it's a top-down action bullet hell, and it's actually like one of the first bullet hells that I really fell in love with. So I will put this in the S tier, and this is another game that I did 100% achievement complete on Steam, so I do recommend this game. And in D tier is Beam Battle. It's a stinker game. It's like only fun with friends, and only because it's unironically bad. But besides that, there's nothing actually. No real juice to Beam Battles. Sorry, any Beam Battles fans, but you're stinging in the dump. All right, Bigfoot. I'm gonna put this into B tier as it's one of the better co-op horror games that is out there, but it's not no Phasmophobia. Like I think Phasmophobia is a lot better. It's gotten a lot better over time as they have added updates. But like I said, it's sort of middle tier. It's not a great game, but it's really fun with friends, and it's not a bad game. So it just really depends. Like mechanically, it's kind of mid. That's why it's in mid tier. Like it's not very balanced, but that's what makes it fun. So I'm gonna put it into the B tier. Next is Balloons Tower Defense, because everyone can get addicted to this game. I'm gonna slap it right in the A tier. It's just, if you haven't played Balloons, you're missing out. Call of Duty Black Ops 3, I'm gonna slap that in the S tier, as this game is, I put thousands of hours in competing competitively in multiplayer, and then messing around with friends and zombies, custom zombie maps. It is just such a fun game. Castle Crashers, I'm gonna slap this in C. I didn't get around to completing it, so I can't really speak on it too much, but me and my friends did play like a good 20 hours, I want to say, into the game. So we got decently far, where it's a good game. It's just, it didn't suck me in. All right, A tier, I'm going to put CSGO. It's classic. Don't really need to say much. It's CSGO. All right, another B tier is Crab Game. It was a really fun game at the time when it did come out, around all the Squid Game hype. I really did have fun with it, but it didn't last long. It's just it was actually another C tier, because I'll put Castle Crashers in B tier. I feel like they deserve to swap. As Crab Game, it was sort of, actually, it's Crab Game D tier. It was fun for a week, then it just sort of, it was a whatever. Another B tier game, I'm gonna put Deep Rock Galactica. I'm only playing this in B tier because I haven't played a lot of it. I've only played 10 to 12 hours, I want to say, and I had a lot of fun during that time, but it didn't really suck me in. B tier, Devour, another game that's like Bigfoot. It can be really fun with friends, but that's all it's really good for. So it's because I didn't get to play, because I don't play it super often, I can't really speak on it. You can only do it so many times, just like Bigfoot, where there's not enough random factors. There's not enough switch up for it to be super fun. It's just sort of once you learn what you're doing, once you know what you're doing, it's sort of pretty straightforward from there. Actually, I'm not gonna read Don't Starve Together because I don't have enough time in it. It's really difficult for me to get into, so I'm just gonna leave it out. All right, Borderlands 3. I'm gonna slap this in A tier because it's one of my favorite Borderlands games, and it's one of the ones where I actually went on my way and completed everything, and it was really good for what it was. It was one of my more favorite open world games in the past couple of years. And yeah, I just had a lot of fun on it, so I'm gonna put it in the A tier. Farming Simulator 2019. Mostly because or C tier, mostly because me and my friends played it for the wrong reason. It's just funny to us, half of the shit you can do on that game. So we just sort of mess around on it. We don't really take it super seriously. We did it a couple of times, but it's just the same gameplay loop. Once you know what you're doing, it's rinse and repeat, and it can get quite boring because it's just farming. It's everything you need to know in the title. They got some cool tractors. Generation Zero, I'm slapping that in D tier. I did not have fun on this game. It was really buggy, really unfun, and the quests were really repetitive. There was no main good storyline. I played it with a couple of friends, and we put 20, 22, 24 hours into it, and it just didn't get any better. So slapping it in the D tier, as I just did not have a good experience on this game. Mount Your Friends, B tier. It sort of falls in the same Devour Bigfoot category. It's a good game to play with friends, and that's sort of its only purpose. It serves it. Not much else I can say about it. Just you just mounting your homies. Who doesn't love mounting the homies? Yeah, Multiverses had a lot of fun. It was really hype on release, but I haven't really gone back and played it a lot. But it was a very addictive gameplay loop, and I could just sit there all day and grinding it if I was really into that game. So it is an A tier because it's mechanically a good game. They're constantly changing it, patching it, and just making it better. All right, Phasmophobia, another A tier game, as it is like Bigfoot Devour. It's a good game with friends, but this game actually it scared me, and it was very fun to really get into and actually learn the mechanics of the ghost. And it's gotten a little dry for me now, but I put in a lot of time before it got dry. Home Party, C tier. It's a fun game with your friends, but it's a very frustrating game. The mini games are really fun, but overall the board game aspect, it's just it's fun with friends. All right, Resident Evil 5, B tier, as it's not a great Resident Evil game. It's sort of just before it started becoming really, really bad. I didn't really like the two-player aspect of it, and the AI was kind of annoying. The story was kind of weird. I just not the biggest fan of Resident Evil 5. Shell Shock Live, A tier, a lot of fun with friends, a lot of fun to just duel up random people online. It has nice challenges in the single-player mode, and it's really, really just a fun tank shooter game. Celeste, S tier, one of the best indie game platformers ever made right there. It is so much fun, so addicting, and it gets really difficult really quick. Seventh Chance, it's sort of a really shitty indie game that I played for an hour and beat it. It was not fun. D tier. Abzu, I'll put this in B tier. It is a really fun and you're basically just moving wildlife, moving the fish into these desolate areas, and it's really really cool because you just sort of like swim along with the fish, and it's sort of like in the same sort of category as um, It Remains of Edith Finch and Suicide of Rachel Foster, where you're just sort of going along and just progressing the story just by holding W down, just keep on swimming, and it just keeps going along. There was no real challenges to the game. It was just fun. It had a little bit of puzzles if I do remember correctly, but it was fun. C tier, Splitgate. It was a really fun concept, but what's as of what's happened with the game recently, it just because I believe they either shut down their servers or they plan to or stop supporting it, whatever the case may be. And that's kind of scummy because they had like a good formula. Amnesia, Machine for Pigs, B tier, Dark Descent, A tier. Amnesia was a fun series to really go back and relive, but it's not like it hasn't aged well in the nicest way possible. But Amnesia is a classic. You gotta have it. Before Your Eyes, A tier, just because it really did try something different. Like you control the game with your eyes. Like you have to have a camera and then you just blink and it'll move scenes and it sort of plays like a movie in a sense where it's telling you a story, and if you don't blink you'll see more of the story. If you blink it'll skip, and if you blink it'll do certain actions on the screen. It's just a really nice story to really sit down and enjoy. Blair Witch, B tier. It wasn't a great horror game for me. Like it just kept going on, and I'm not really into the Blair Witch universe. Maybe that's why it wasn't such a thing for me, but I feel like you shouldn't have to be to really get into one of these games. And it just wasn't a great horror experience for me personally. Blasphemous, I'll put this in A tier. It's a really good Metroidvania. It's not as good as Hollow Knight, but it's a really good 2D. Like they really nailed the 2D dodging, which a lot of Souls-like 2D Souls-like slash Metroidvanias struggle with. Like some of them are really clunky and bad to play, but Blasphemous felt good. It was difficult, and I had a lot of fun in it. So I do put it in the A tier. Blue Fire, put this in the B tier. It's a 3D platformer, sort of like Zelda is the best way I can put it. Has an okay story. The bosses were pretty fun. They got pretty hard at the very end, and it had these nice little challenge like void areas where it's just 3D platforming. And I did have a lot of fun with the platforming, so that's why it's in B tier, but it's not like anything special. Bulletstorm, that's a D tier. It wasn't really good. Like I only played it because of nostalgia. Like I went back and played it and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a cool game, but it just kind of sucked. Actually, I'll put it in C tier because it was like cool to just sort of run through, but the gameplay it sucked. It like aged horribly. It was made poorly. The story wasn't really there. It was just sort of like mindless gunning down while I was watching YouTube videos on the side. Cloudpunk, I'll put that in B tier, as you are basically, the game is just like Taxi Driver Simulator. You learn a lot about the story and you progress through doing different pickups, and that's it. You're just sort of in your car doing your thing. It was pretty fun actually. Cuphead, put this in the S tier, as Cuphead is one of my favorite games. One of the first games I ever played on PC. As well, and I have to go back and replay it. I haven't played it in a long time. DLC's out for it, but everything about the game was really fun. Like the running gun was okay, but the boss fights, that's what you're there for. The chunk of the boss fights are really fun, really hard, and it's a great game. Death's Door, another S tier game. Like these indie games that have been coming out recently have been killer, like Tunic and Death's Door. Really, really good games. I would recommend to anyone. Death's Door was a short, like 7-8 hour playthrough. It was sort of like Tunic, where it's Zelda Souls-likey, but it has its own style. It doesn't like, it's not copied, and it plays really well. Has nice abilities, has a nice way of keeping you engaged, and I really did like it. All right, these two will be in A tier. They'll be on the same page because Man of Medan and Little Hope, they're basically the same game but different stories, and I did have a good amount of fun in them. They weren't like good things to like, it's sort of like a movie, you know? They're just more like movies, and you sort of play through them, trying to get people killed, and it's a lot of fun trying to like make everyone survive. Me and my friend went through both of them. We really sucked in keeping everyone alive, but it's a good challenge, good fun. Dark Souls 2, I'm going to put it in the C tier because it was just way too easy for me, but that's mainly because I made it really easy for myself. Maybe that's unfair. I'll put it in B tier because I did play Magic only because I never played Magic in a Souls game before. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to play Dark Souls 2 with Magic only. I probably picked the worst one to play Magic only because there's not many spells, first off. And two, it's like really, really easy. Like the game overall. Dark Souls 3, A tier. had a lot of fun in it. Um, it's my favorite of the trilogy. Actually, I'll put it in S tier. Dark Souls 3, but it's not really Elden. Actually, it was kind of like Elden Ring on for me, where I wanted to beat the whole game, beat all the bosses, which I did. Went out of my way to beat the DLC bosses and the hidden bosses, like the King of the Storm, etc. So it was a really fun Souls-like experience. Dark Souls 1, A tier, it was really clunky because I've never played it before, so it wasn't the greatest experience, but I still like played through it all of it. Like after I beat Elden Ring, I was like, okay, I am in love with Souls games. Play Dark Souls 1, play Dark Souls 2, then play Dark Souls 3. And I had a lot of fun in the trilogy, but Dark Souls 1 was not my favorite of the three. Dark Souls 3 takes that for me. And Dark Souls 2 was just sort of whatever. Dark. This game was kind of boring, not gonna lie. Like it's a 2D platformer horror, quote unquote, puzzle game. And you just sort of going around solving puzzles, and it just wasn't super difficult for me, so I just didn't have a lot of fun in it. Daymare. I'm gonna put this in the A tier. I had a lot of fun in Daymare 1994. B tier. Yeah, I had a good amount of fun in Daymare 1994. It just felt like it was lacking. Like it was a good Resident Evil clone, but it just felt a little lacking. And I'm just excited to see what they do with the next game, because that's where all the potential is lying for me. Like it hooked me in. It was good enough to where I could play through the whole game without major complaints, but it just had me looking forward to what they're making next, and hopefully they improve on this formula they have. Deepest Sword. I put this in C tier. It's a fun 30-minute free to play game on Steam. It was cool. That's about it. Digimon. Put this in C tier as well. I don't recommend this game. I beat it, put 140 hours into it or whatever I put into it. It was just sort of mindless to me. Like I don't really like JRPGs, so maybe that's why. But I just it was the same old, same old. Like once I got so far, it was just whatever. I beat both story modes as well. Donut County, I'll put that in B tier as well. You play as a hole, and you go around making things fall into your hole to make your hole get bigger. And you just go around consuming things while it tells a story of why you're doing it, and it's cool. S tier, Devil May Cry 5. If you haven't played this game, do. Like I never played a Devil May Cry game. I hopped in with 5, and the gameplay got me hooked immediately. Like it's such a sick third person action game where you gotta rack up points, get combos. It's really good. I highly recommend. Doom. Put this in the B tier. It was a really good game, but looking back on it, like after playing Eternal, it's a lot better than Shadow Warrior 2, but not as good as Doom Eternal. I also forgot to put Doom Eternal on this list, as I just recently beat it. So I'm gonna put Doom Eternal. If I had it here, I'd just slap it right in the A tier right there, because that's what it deserves. Duke Nukem, also a C tier game. It's sort of like Bulletstorm. Just sort of played it mindlessly. It wasn't really good. It wasn't really it played bad mechanically. It wasn't very interesting. It had a really bad story. It just kind of sucked. So C tier. Dying Light, put that in A tier. It was a lot of fun to play through with my friend. We were on and off playing Dying Light 2, but it's not as fun as Dying Light 1. It's sort of missing something compared to Dying Light 1, but had a lot of fun just running around parkouring and killing zombies. So I'll put that in A tier. Ender Lilies. Ooh, Ender Lilies. A tier. Such a good. I probably should have added more tiers, but we're sticking with it. Ender Lilies. It's sort of like on the same page as Blasphemous, where it is one of the other only good 2D Souls-like Metroidvanias games that I've played, and it has its own unique twist where you're not attacking with your sword per se. Like you don't have a set weapon. You have summons, and every time you go to swing, it does the summon attack. So it can have has a lot of variety and switch up, and it was a lot of fun. So I'll put it in the A tier. Erica, C tier. It's just a interactive movie game. It was fun, short, but there wasn't much really to say about it. Escape Simulator, I'll put in A tier. It was a lot of fun to play virtual escape rooms with me and 2 of other friends. We just went through and beat the whole game over the span of a couple weeks. Just every so often we'd hop on and play it out, and it was a lot of fun. So put it in the B tier. Resident Evil 6, D tier. Terrible game. Don't recommend. Played through one of the story modes. Didn't want to play through anymore. Bad game. Mechanically, poor. UI, really poor. It kind of sucked. I didn't like it at all. Extra Sight. whatever this game is, it's a parkour game, really poorly made, but it was like a $2 game on Steam that I just wanted to try. It was cool, but I wouldn't play it ever again. Evil Within 1, B tier. Evil Within 2, A tier. Now, Evil Within 1, I did have a lot of fun with. Third person, sort of like Resident Evil in the sense where you run around, trying to survive, collect things, progress the story. You know, you have to conserve your ammo and whatnot. And I had a really cool upgrade system. But after playing the second game, I just couldn't go back to the first. Like, I tried to play it for a couple hours. It just didn't feel the same. Like, the Evil Within 2 is miles above Evil Within 1, in my opinion. And I played through Evil Within 2 in first person exclusively. And that really changed the game for me. It was a lot of fun. And I definitely do like Evil Within 2 more. So I'm going to put it in the A tier. All right, Far Cry 4. B tier. It was like I've never played a Far Cry game until then. It was good, but not great. It wasn't terrible. It was better than Ghost Recon, but it's not on the same page as these games for like Borderlands, for like open world games. So put it in the B tier. It's just like all right. Far Alone Sails, you're just kind of on a boat and you have to get parts to move forward. There isn't much storytelling unless you like really look into it, and it's just a chill casual game that you can play and go on your boat and just keep like progressing forward in this really sad world. Ghost Runner, A tier. It was a really fun parkour ninja game that I didn't know I needed, and I got really mad at this game. Like, I really sucked at this. Like, I don't suck at many games, but this game I sucked on and I still had fun. So I'm putting it in A tier. Oh, Godstrike. I'm also going to put that in A tier as it's a bullet hell. It's not quite as good as Archvale, but it is a really good bullet hell where you're just fighting bosses over and over again. I had a lot of fun playing through it. Gris, put it in C tier. It was alright. It's a 2D platformer color game where you go and find the colors, and that whenever you find, like, let's say blue, then it'll add blue to the world and the world will change. So it didn't really do it for me. Like, it was a fun game for what it was, but that's sort of it. Like, I just sort of withstood it, like, just wanted to play it out, but like near the end it was drawing out for me. I just didn't really get into it, so I C tier it is for me. Hades, a roguelike game, S tier. It's one of the first roguelike games that I ever like really beat a full run in, and it was a lot of fun to really just go in there and grind that game over and over again and really take on what it has to offer. The boss fights were fun, they were hard, and it's real pain, but I did enjoy it. So I'm gonna put it in the S tier because I did spend a lot of time and I loved it. Happy game, C tier. It was not a happy game. It was a very, very sad, messed up game, and I didn't have a lot of fun on it. It was just really, really weird game, and I just wanted it to be over. But I did beat it, so C tier. Henry Stickmin Collection, I'll slap that in B tier. I'll put that in C tier as well because it's not like, it was just sort of fun to screen share to my friends, and it's not supposed to be anything super serious. It's just supposed to be a fun little, you're a stickman and you gotta make choices to play out the story. So it was alright. Layers of Fear, I'll put it in B tier. It was an alright horror experience. It wasn't my favorite. It wasn't terrible. It just wasn't. It's just middle of the line horror game. Like, it didn't really get me too much. Didn't really suck me in, but it was alright. So Layers of Fear, B tier. Left 4 Dead, A tier. I think it's Left 4 Dead 2, actually. Yeah. Me and my friends played through all of it, had a lot of fun with it, so I'm gonna put it in A tier. It's just a classic, you gotta have Left 4 Dead, same with CSGO. Just games you gotta have on the list. Everhood, S tier. It's like this rhythm-based game. It's 2D. It sort of plays like Undertale in a sense, but it is so much fun. The gameplay is so addicting. I got hooked in and I couldn't stop playing, so I'm gonna put it in S tier. It's a really good game. Legend of Keepers. It's another roguelike. I'll put it in B tier. It was okay to play through for a playthrough, but after that, like, I had no want to like really play out through any of the other story modes. It's just like, it was a turn-based strategy dungeon crawler. It was just alright. Like, nothing special. The roguelike aspect was cool, but after I beat the one story mode, I didn't really have motivation to continue on going. It just sort of felt like I had done everything I wanted to do. So B tier it goes. Now the Penumbra series, I'm gonna put them all in D tier as they're what led up to be like Amnesia. So they're just really lackluster. It's just like them sort of figuring out the ropes, their first games. I don't really expect them to be super great. I didn't really have a lot of fun with them, but I just sort of like stuck them out because I was very curious, and I bought them in a bundle with um, the Amnesia games. Little Nightmares 1, I will put that in the A tier. I'll put Little Nightmares 1 in the B tier because it's not quite as good as Little Nightmares 2, but it was a fun experience. I did have a lot more fun in Little Nightmares 2. Yeah, they're really short, really scenic horror games where it just like shows off the graphics of like I really like the art style of them, so I'm gonna put them in that one in B tier. Milk inside a bag of milk inside a bag of milk inside a bag of milk. And then the sequel, I'm putting in D tier. They're psychological horror visual novels, and they were all right. I didn't get really scared. It was just sort of like something I played through because I was curious after beating the first one. So I was like, I'll get the second one, and it didn't do it for me. So D tier goes. Minute, I'll put in C tier. I didn't really have a lot of fun in Minute. Like the concept was cool. Like you had a minute before you reset, and you had to progress and make it farther. But yeah, the concept to me sort of got old quick. Like it was cool at first, but after just doing the same loop over and over again, like I was making progress. Don't get me wrong, but it just like a lot of trial and error, and it was just sort of like lost its touch quick with me. Mo Astray, put in the B tier. It was alright. It's a story-based 2D platformer. There's some combat, I guess you could call it that, where you latch onto people's heads and rip them off, but it's just you're there for the story, and it was an alright story. It was nothing special, so I'll slap it in the B tier. Monster Sanctuary, I'm gonna put this in A tier. It was a really cool monster collector game, but it just got really difficult near the end, and that's why it's not anything better than. That's why it's only an A and not an S, because I did have a lot of fun with it, like learning how everything worked. But at the end, it was really brutal. So I can't with good heart just put it in the S tier. But I did have a lot of fun. It was one of my favorite games in this genre. Nexomon. So there's Nexomon. The first one, I'll put that in D tier, and Nexomon, the other one, I'll put in C tier. These are also monster collector games, sort of like Pokemon. But these are mobile game ports. At least the first one was. So it just played very poorly. But I did have C and B tier because the first one was a mobile port. Played very poorly, but I still played it out because I was very interested to see what happened. I wanted to get to the second game. Second game, I don't believe was a mobile port. I think it was just made for PC. It had a lot more features with it. It played a lot better. Had a lot more fun with it. So I'm putting it in the B tier because it was nothing crazy, but it was alright. Mortal Kombat 11, also in B tier. It's just another fighting game that I wanted to beat the story of, and I did that and moved on. It was nothing special, just another Mortal Kombat game. Omega Strike, that's a terrible, like it's an alright game for what it was, but it was a mobile port, so I just didn't have a lot of fun with it. Fury, put this game in S tier. It's another sort of boss fighter, but it has really tight combat, and it was a lot of fun. It was a bullet hell mixed with regular fighting, I guess. It's sort of so weird how to explain it because it transitions a lot of. But yeah, it was a bullet hell, and it had a lot of really fun boss fights. It's almost like on the level with Cuphead with how good the boss fights were. Same with Everhood and Archvale. Like it's on the level of those games. Like I had so much fun fighting the bosses. Resident Evil 2. This would be in A tier. It's the better remake of the two. I'm gonna put Resident Evil 3 in B tier as we're going along here. But Resident Evil 2 is probably the first remake I played in a while where I was like, holy shit, they did everything right. Like usually I don't like remakes, but this remake was actually like different storytelling, played a lot different. Like it was a really fun game. And Resident Evil 3 I didn't get the same um sense with. Like it was sort of like a downgraded from Resident Evil 2, in my opinion. One Shot B, I don't really remember much of this game. I just remember it was alright because I played it so long ago. So I'm just slap him B tier. Grime, put this in A tier. It's sort of like Ender Lilies and Blasphemous. It's another. Put Grime in B tier as well, because Grime was like, it's a Metroidvania. It's sort of like 2D. It's like Blasphemous and Ender Lilies, but it doesn't feel as polished as those two. Has a really cool concept with the parrying mechanic because your head will suck up anything as you parry with it. So you can do a lot of different abilities with that. But it was all right. The boss fights weren't anything special. I just sort of played through it. I just played through it and had some fun, but nothing to write home about. So B tier it is. And a Remnant from the Ashes, A tier. It's one of the only 3D Souls-like games that I've played that I've had a lot of fun with. It has a really cool system with guns and the Souls-like genre, and it played really, really well. I played through it a bunch. I had a lot of fun with it, so I definitely do recommend this game. So I'm gonna put it in the A tier. All right, we're down to the final three, and these are all Resident Evil games. Resident Evil 0, B tier. It's not as good as 1, not as good as 2. Sort of like on the same level as 5. It's just sort of, and 3. It's just sort of there, you know. Um, I did play it through it recently. I don't like how it doesn't have a storage system. I don't like all the unnecessary challenges it gives you, and it doesn't feel as good as 1 does, and it tries to be 1. Resident Evil Revelations, 1 and 2. I'm gonna put 1 in, or I'm gonna put them both in A tier, because as side games, they've really outshined Resident Evil 5, Resident Evil 0, Resident Evil 3 Remake. In my opinion, like these two, as a story, they were really good. I don't like how they did the. I don't like how they did the chapters part where you had to pay for every different chapter. Like I didn't like how they laid out the game, but besides that, it was a really good game. And that's it for my every game that I've played on Steam tier list. Let me know in the comments below how bad my opinions are. And if you agree with this list, let me know. Leave a comment down below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you made it to the very end. And yeah, see you guys later.